Matt, let's go to you. And I guess, this is a pretty big story here. It needs no introduction. I'll let you go ahead
Let's
and
introduce it then. Superfish. If you've been on the internet this week, you've heard about it. So between September of last year and February of this year, Lenovo was shipping some of their laptops with software called Superfish, which was supposed, it was adware, and its purpose was to inject relevant advertising into web browser sessions based on your search terms. It turns out that in order to do this, it was playing some tricks with SSL and intercepting SSL at the browser. It was installing itself as a trusted root certificate, which means that it had the ability to, if any certificates were presented against the browser would check and say, do we know this guy? And it would say, yeah, Superfish, I'm here. You can trust anything that has my name on it.
So it's kind of like legitimizing that, browser in the middle, or man in the browser.
It is exactly man in the middle. That is that for advertising purposes. Now, it turns out that their implementation had, let's just say, a few bugs. One of the problems with it is that the certificate itself that they were using could be extracted very trivially from memory. And Robert Graham actually demonstrated this, where he ran the software, found the certificate in memory, pulled it out, and then tried to sign his own cert with it and found out that, oh, look, it needs a password. Brute force the password. Turns out the password is and I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying that because it's all over the internet. Now, this is a terrible password. If you know anything about the DLL that's being used, this is a terrible password.
It at least didn't show up in Jim's list.
It will show up in Jim's list tomorrow.
Next time.
I promise you it will.
There will be a lot of guesses on it.
So the other problem with it is Filippo Lasorda, I hope I'm getting his name right, did some research around the implementation of SSL interception. And it turns out that you can actually trick this Superfish Commodia software into modifying non-legitimate SSL certificates in a way to make them appear legitimate. Now, I can go into the details. It has something to do with an extension to X509, the alternate name field, where if you put your target server name in there, it'll take a look at it and say, okay, well, thumbs up, it's in there somewhere, and it'll appear to be valid. This is terrible because anybody using a Lenovo laptop, not only are they, not only could somebody create their own certificate that these laptops will obey, they'll also be vulnerable to self-signed, unauthenticated certificates. So in general, this is kind of a huge mistake.
Really kind of, subverting the entire authentication intention behind SSL.
Basically shooting SSL in the foot for anybody with a laptop with this installed. Now, Lenovo has, after a little bit of resistance, apologized, provided ways for removing it, will not be installing it on future machines. Symantec, McAfee, Microsoft have all added this to their antivirus. This will be automatically removed, which is great. And Lenovo has published a list of laptops that are affected by this. So things are being fixed, but it turns out that this is not the only place where this software is actually available. The Commodia technology is in a couple other products. Some of them are legitimate-ish, some of them are straight up malware. And I think it's raising a lot of questions on SSL interception, the legitimacy of the right reasons to do it, the wrong reasons to do it. So now we've got this mess.
I think this is really a sort of a broader topic. A lot of folks have said it's kind of like the Wild West out there. I've been saying for years that there really are no rules on the internet. There are really guidelines. And it really has, I think, a lot to do with the transparency of the provider. And so to go into this a little bit further, there's a big effort to try to monetize access to internet and to provide users with the least expensive access to internet capabilities as possible, whether it be the PCs themselves, browser access, network service, you name it. They're trying to provide it as inexpensively as possible and to recoup whatever costs through advertising mechanisms. And so this is a case, in the way I see it, a case where they were trying to do what they felt to be a legitimate thing under the, there are no rules environment, but then perhaps overstepped or made some flaws in the implementation.
A lot of this all comes back to debates we were having 3 or 4 years ago when CA after CA were being compromised, DigiNotar and all this stuff that was going on, right? And we really, I mean, you can easily detect and prevent this type of stuff if we get beyond the current CA model. I mean, the convergence proposal by Moxie Marlinspike a few years ago, I know some Google researchers had some other proposals where, you can verify from multiple, kind of triangulate what should an SSL certificate look like, right? Have a P2P network where somebody on Comcast and somebody on Shaw in Canada and then somebody, on their laptop at Starbucks all compare what cert did they get and see that one of these things is not like the other. There are, we've been dragging our feet on technical solutions to email insecurities, certificate authorities, all these things for years.
Yeah, good point. And when you say we here, I think you're referring to basically the internet ecosystem in general.
Yeah, I'll blame Vint Cerf. Why not? No, but the big we of those of us that are in technical control of the internet, which is the people participating in standards committees, whether that's ICANN, whether that's AT&T as a service provider, we all play a role in this in moving standards forward. And Google's been doing a lot to move a lot of standards forward lately, and I think I'd like to see more large tech companies with influence get involved, saying enough is enough. Let's build a secure internet.
Yeah, I think the important thing in all of these is to try to recognize ulterior motives in those activities. That there's potentially a difference between trying to make a more secure internet and trying to protect your own business model for monetizing use of the internet. So there are some aspects of that need to be considered in that entire process. But I agree with you thoroughly that to try to push forward for improving the technology and in fact improving the assurances around that technology. That is, a lot of the problems that we're seeing aren't necessarily a lack of technology; they're just flaws in the implementation.
There are technological ways to defeat this particular thing. There was an article in the Register today that Mozilla is thinking of releasing a blacklist of dangerous root certificates that would include this one, and just would not accept the Superfish certificate at all. But there are deeper underlying issues in the whole infrastructure that like Chet was just saying.
Yeah. So the notion of revoked certificates it exists, but I think it sounds like, Jim, that this would be basically an independent blacklisting of certain certificates.
Yeah, that's what Mozilla is considering doing, and we've seen IE. Microsoft has done IE updates that removed certain root certificates in the past. Chrome and Firefox both have done something, have had similar updates in the past. So Mozilla's talking about putting that into a Firefox update probably. They said they could do it within 24 hours.
Well, and this comes back to the standards being horribly, horribly broken again, which is, in order to have a certificate system work, the original design required this concept of revocation. And then Google completely removed revocation checking from Chrome almost a year ago. So you can't even turn it on. There's no way to know if a certificate's been revoked. The only way you can even limp forward, if we want to call it that, is with this blacklisting concept, right? So the whole certificate thing is, just broken, right? Because the basic premises and concepts that we trust everyone issuing certificates, and if we screw up, we can undo it with a revocation. Both of those things are fundamentally broken.
Yep, absolutely. But again, good principles in terms of paying attention to what you're buying or not.